I hope you had a good break and had a chance to go through the posters and knowledge products on display. Without any delay, we are now moving on to our panel discussion session. Panel discussion session is titled Role of Think Tanks in the Economic Development of Nation. We are very honored to have distinguished panelists with us today. Let's start the session by welcoming our panelists on the dais. Start off by inviting our panelists and moderator that are present here with us. First of all, Dr. Deepak K. Khadka, Senior Research Fellow, Policy Research Institute, Nepal. Then we have Dr. Somkiat Tankit Vanik, Thailand Development Research Institute, also our keynote speaker for today. We now have Dr. Krishna Pahari, Senior Livelihood and Food Security Specialist at NDRI. Now have our moderator, Dr. Divas Bahadur Basnet, Senior Research Specialist, Water and Climate Program, NDRI. I would also like to welcome our panelists who are present with us online. Dr. Famida Khatun, Center for Policy Dialogue, CPT, Bangladesh. Dr. Viva Dhawan, the Energy and Research Institute, India. Dr. Abid Qayyum Suleri, Sustainable Development Policy Institute, Pakistan. Thank you, everyone. So to start off this session, may I request Dr. Krishna Pahari, Senior Livelihood and Food Security Specialist at NDRI, for his presentation. Dr. Krishna Pahari is one of the founding members of NDRI and was its first executive director in 2004. He is currently serving as a senior research specialist and is leading NDRI's ongoing work on the state of food security and nutrition in Nepal. He worked with the World Food Programme for more than 15 years, leading numerous works on food security assessments and monitoring in different contexts in Asia and Africa. Dr. Pahari, over to you now.
Dhanyavad. Namaste and good morning, everybody. I'm going to present a paper on just some background paper to set the context for today's panel discussion. हाम्रो केही विदेशी साथीहरू पनि हुनुभएको हुनाले म चाहिँ अंग्रेजीमै प्रस्तुति गर्छु. So I will, because we have few guests who do not understand Nepali, so with due respect, therefore I would like to make the presentation in English. When it comes to the So when we talk about the think tank, first of all, we should have an understanding about the think tank itself. The slide suru garu. So think tank, literally, if you translate into Nepali, it sounds a bit strange, huh? Tank. हामी नेपालीमा भन्दाखेरि सोच केन्द्र, thought center. If we translate in Nepali, I think it's better understood that way. Generally, there are several definitions of think tanks used by different organizations depending on the purpose. Generally, think tanks are these organizations where dealing with the research and advocacy on matters related to public policy. Those are the think tanks. And they serve as the bridge between the knowledge and the power, because policy level people, they yield power. So how to provide the knowledge so that they make informed decisions, those in the power. That's the think tank to tell it very in a brief way. And how they evolved, how the think tanks evolved in the modern society, particularly after the Second World War. During the World War time, think tanks were used by the powerful countries at that time, particularly in North America, as some place where it is safe to discuss your plan and strategy. Yeah, because the world was facing such a confrontation. That is how it evolved at that time, but in North America. But later on, it was expanded, and now it's more general to understand different organizations who work on policy-related issues on the various contemporary problems. So these think tanks are supposed to be the center of knowledge, guiding rational, evidence-based policies. So okay. This is what I mentioned briefly about the think tanks. So, coming to our region, even though in our region we don't have very globally recognized think tanks compared to the Western countries, though it's coming up, we had a very, very glorious past. Yeah. For example, this region, once it was the center of knowledge creation and dissemination, as seen in the various old historical documents. And for example, the Buddhist teachings are now spread all over the place, but they started right from here, from Lumbini. Similarly, Ved, which is very rich, very rich document with so many elaborations on different aspects of life and society. I'm from Pokhara, and there is a place called Vyas Gufa near Damauli, which is only about 40 kilometers from Pokhara. This person called Vyas, it is said that he spent many years inside that cave to create this Ved. Similarly, in the region, there are so many excellent examples of past glorious achievements in terms of knowledge creation. For example, Nalanda, which is in India, the Nalanda University is supposed to be probably the oldest university in the world. I also had the privilege to be in Taxila in Pakistan, which is actually Takshashila in Sanskrit, and it became Taxila. It was also one of the earliest knowledge centers. And then in the ancient times, we had a practice that the kings, which were in the power, they used to take advice from the pandits, so-called pandits who were knowledgeable, who used to have we used to read a lot and then gain insights, which was transmitted to the ruling kings. And coming to our own now we have to, if we come back to the modern times, particularly in Nepal, we have to talk post-1950, yeah? Because we were, for example, if we look at the Darbar Square or old temples in Nepal. In several hundred years ago, I think we had a very rich knowledge, which was helpful in creating such masterpieces. Similarly, in India, Taj Mahal is such an excellent example. So in Pakistan and in these other countries in the region. But something didn't go quite well for a while for various political reasons. In case of Nepal, for example, after the Rana, this oligarchy, that rule was abolished. Since 1950s, we started the first 5-year development plans. That's when the need for a think tank or some knowledge center was felt. And after the establishment of the Tribhuvan University in 1960, the first university in Nepal, there were several specialized centers, SEDA, SERID, SINAS, and RICAS. I think they were, compared to the context of Nepal, they were doing pretty well if you look back at that time. But something didn't go too well as we expected. So we can, it's a question of open discussion, what went wrong and how it could have been better. And then in the meantime, there were also, in the recent decades, there were also other institutions initiated at the non-governmental level. For example, IIDS, there was NSET, Nepal Society of Earthquake Technology, and we also just set up NDRI 20 years ago. There is also ISET Nepal. They were the examples of such think tanks somehow created with own private initiative, but to serve the society at large. These are only few examples. There are more. And in 2018, there was an important decision by the government. They set up so-called Policy Research Institute as the official government think tank. Particularly, to tell you honest, we are so happy at NDRI for that news. Because back 20 years ago, exactly because there was a lack of such think tank, which was independent, autonomous, and providing evidence-based, supporting evidence-based policies, we set up NDRI. Now PRI is well functioning. We are so happy about it, even though there are challenges, which is normal. Can you go to the next one, please? Now, I would like to talk briefly about our own experience on how a think tank like NDRI, which is started with a humble beginning, would also influence policies in a positive way. So if you are dedicated to your work, I think we can achieve positive impact. That's what I like to show by a few examples. Arko. To tell you one very small example, in 2009, nobody in Nepal was talking about railways. We only had one railway line in Tarai, which was very old, but in a very poor state. But they were not talking about railway development in concrete. So NDRI, we organized a regional international conference on railway development in Nepal, together with the Planning Commission. We had participants from China, from India, from UNESCAP, from Japan. Dr. Surje Raj Acharyaji, who was in Japan at that time, you were also one of the speakers, I remember. So it was a humble beginning, but as a result, what happened is that now there is a dedicated railway department in the Department of its Ministry of Physical Planning and Infrastructure. Now, all the major political parties, they talk about railways in Nepal, connecting to the south, connecting to the north. So that is why sometimes it helps. Even if others are not talking about it, it helps by thinking ahead for the future. Arko. Then there was this new constitution in Nepal promulgated in 2015, but it took a long time. After the peace agreement in 2006-07, It took almost 7-8 years. And they were talking about restructuring the nation in terms of different federal states. They were talking about on the political grounds, sometime on the ethnic grounds, but there was little discussion on taking economic development as the focus while you decide on the state restructuring. NDRI as an independent organization, we were able to bring together the top former finance ministers and top economists of all three major political parties at that time: Nepali Congress, Maoist Party, and Rashtriya Prajatantra Party. And it was moderated by Dr. Kulchandra Regmi. So as a result, even though we cannot say how successful we were, I think it contributed to some extent on that, to make people aware that we should also think about the economic prosperity while we go for the restructuring of the state. Next one. Now, another example on food security I would like to mention. It's very interesting. While Nepal's economic growth has been very sluggish, yeah, compared to Thailand or China or even to our neighboring India, but we have made some very significant progress in some social sector. Dr. Karki is here. We have also made some very good improvement in the health sector, for example, reducing child mortality and reducing undernutrition, malnutrition, and so on. In terms of eliminating hunger, you can see from the graph, since 2000 until 2022, our progress has been significant. We are, in that respect, we are better off than most of our neighboring South Asian countries. Yeah, that is because of the efforts from the government, private sector, NGOs, all of them. But one important thing is that there was the role of the evidence. NDRI is very happy to be part of this journey where we provided evidence for informed policy making. For example, in 2009, we conducted a study on the migration. You know, from Karnali and far west region at that time, many of the people used to go to India for seasonal migration because of hunger. They could not feed themselves. And after working for 3 or 6 months, they used to come home with a net saving of only 5,000 rupees on average. So this was an important finding for policymaker like Dr. Bimala Paudel. So if you could do something, people could get that earning by staying at home in their own place. It would prevent most of that distress migration. As a result, there was this Karnali employment program and so many other activities. I think that kind of distress migration is now reduced very much, even though there is another level of migration now towards the Middle East and Malaysia. And then in 2010, together with the National Planning Commission and the World Food Programme, we published the first food security atlas of Nepal, which serves as an important baseline for making policies and programming. Now there is an updated version in 2019, and we are working on the state of food security in Nepal, which we hope to release this year. Arko. Tobacco. I think it's very much related to colleagues like Dr. Arjun Karki. We at NDRI also, we have worked a lot significantly on this front. Because in Nepal, in terms of tobacco, government measures to control the use of tobacco, our score is one of the lowest in the world. Because tax on the tobacco was very little, one of the lowest, and there were also not other control measures. As a result, it has a huge impact on the economy and the health of the populations. We did many studies on this, and through constant advocacy, with the policymakers. Dr. Jaya Gurung was leading this work. We were able to somehow, we also had a part in the government's decision to increase tobacco taxation by excise tax by 50% in the past 2 years. I think it will have a positive impact on controlling tobacco consumption, generating more revenue, and also on the improving health. Arko. And similarly, you know, Nepal is supposed to be very rich in water resources. We are, but we are facing huge challenges because of the climate impacts and other issues. We have also done substantial work on the to raise awareness at the policy level on how to incorporate climate financing into the water and hydropower sector, and how to design hydropower projects by considering this climate factor. This one. And now these are only the few examples. There are so many. In the interest of time, I don't want to go into further details. The challenges. Coming to the challenges, because it's the challenge of the country and we are supposed to provide policy level inputs. One big challenge in Nepal is that it's also in the region. We want economic prosperity, but our performance record is very poor on that. Particularly if you look at the last 50 years of economic growth in Nepal, India, and China. You know, in China, the top bar, their economy has grown so much. Their growth rate has been steadily very high. While for Nepal, it's on the bottom. It has been very low growth, averaging about between 2 to 3% in the last 50 years. India has picked up recently. They are also doing very well, but we are lagging behind a lot. So this is a huge challenge. And then as a result, there is a little focus on the research and development. There are resource constraints. At the policy level, there is no appetite for doing substantive studies for knowledge creation. And then there is the lack of consistent government policies. Yesterday, I read somewhere that in the last 32 years after the multi-party democracy in Nepal, there have been 29 governments in 32 years. So this has affected all sectors, including the sectors on knowledge creation. And then one biggest challenge, very big challenge for us, is that there is no proper institutional framework for recognition of think tanks. We all have to register as an NGO, and we have to get it renewed every year. While for the research, sometimes we have to work on a same research project for 5 years, even 10 years. We have to think long for the future. So this has been a challenge for us. Next one. When there are challenges, there are also opportunities. Yeah, this is the other side of the coin. Yeah. So on the opportunity side, NDRI, as an independent think tank, I think the opportunity is there because we may have broader acceptance to different stakeholders, but because we are not aligned to any particular political line of thinking, political groupings. So because of that, we may have some better credibility in our products, but we have to maintain that. That's important. And then we have this opportunity to provide policies, evidence-based policies, which are based on rigor and reliability rather than our certain preconceived positions. Yeah, that's also an opportunity. And then there is opportunity for collaboration among institutions in the region and beyond. We can collaborate with institutions in South Asia. For example, there are excellent institutions I know in India, in Pakistan, in Thailand. And then the other thing is that the Asian region now is the center of gravity for the world economy. From the West, it is moving towards East, which is happening in our time. particularly in Nepal, we are in a position where there is SAC, there is BIMSTEC, yeah, and we have India in the south, China in the north. We are here in between almost 3 billion people. So if we, because utilizing this unique position and then having an effective collaboration with excellent partners in different countries, I think we can play a significant role, not only in the region, but also globally. So that ends my presentation. Thank you very much for your time. Dhanyavad.
Thank you, Dr. Party. I think I'll take over now. We are a little bit running short of time, and we are supposed to end our session by 1:15 in about an hour for lunch. If you will allow me, maybe we'll extend that by 15 minutes so that we can go for lunch at 1:30. We have a very distinguished panel assembled today. I don't need to introduce Dr. Somkiat from TDRI, who has been introduced. I will do that, but I wanted to really introduce our other panelist who's here, Dr. Deepak Kharga, policy from the Government Policy Research Institute, PRI, Nepal. Dr. Kharga, I will introduce you a little later, but I think I want to take this opportunity to welcome 3 distinguished panelists from Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan who are here. And I would request Dr. Famida Khatun from the Center for Policy Dialogue, CPD, Bangladesh, to turn on your video, please. And I would request our the people handling the video, can you pin her so that everybody can see her face? Similarly, can you, I would request Dr. Viva Dhawan from the Energy and Research Institute, TERI, India, is also online, to kindly turn on your video, please, and so that we can see you. Santoshji, can you, can you see? Yeah, okay, that's very nice. Similarly, now I would request Dr. Abid Suleri from Sustainable Development Policy Institute, SDPI, Pakistan, to turn on the video. Welcome all 3 of you, and we apologize for the delay in getting you on online. But without much ado, I will start the panel discussion. We will organize the panel discussion in 2 rounds. The first round will be, I think I will reduce, we said 50 minutes, but we'll reduce that to 40 minutes. And I would like to give each panelist about 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. If you can do it in 5, it is good. But since we told you we will give you 7 minutes, if you want to use 7, that is also fine. I don't want to do that, but more time we have for the discussion. And in the second round, we will have the question and answer questions from the online participants, as well as from our participants here. So first of all, I will ask the panelists to speak in an alphabetical order, starting from Bangladesh. Dr. Famida Khatun. I will just briefly introduce her. I don't know if all of you have her bio note. Is it in part of the packet? If it is in the part of the packet, I will not, it is? Okay, so it's in the packet, so I will save time. But I would just like to introduce her as the Executive Director of Center for Policy Dialogue, Bangladesh. And my question to her is, Bangladesh has been one of the fastest growing economies with an annual GDP growth rate about 7% over the last decade. Poverty has been drastically reduced in the same period. These have been supported by substantial strides made in gender and women's participation, with increase in labor force of women in the last decade. export diversification beyond garments and textiles to value-added products like pharmaceuticals, software, and ICT, and infrastructure development, including the famous, iconic, record-setting Padma multipurpose bridge, which was in our media, covered in the media as well. And digital transformation, and there has been a good safety, social safety nets from what I understand. Against this background of Bangladesh and the impacts that Bangladesh face due to climate change, sea level rise, floods and cyclones, and of course, the large and growing population, can you share your experience, roles and challenges, how a leading think tank of Bangladesh like CPD has contributed to this economic development of Bangladesh? Over to you, if possible in 5 minutes, but I will give you 10 minutes as promised. So thank you so much. The floor, the Zoom is yours. The room is yours, Dr. Pamida.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate NDRI on its 20th anniversary. Indeed, I would also like to take this advantage to announce that this year also marks the 30th anniversary of Center for Policy Dialogues establishment. So we are celebrating with you, like you also. And I can very well understand the emotions and the pride and all the achievements you have made during this last 20 years of journey. So, and I wish you all the best for your next journey forward. So your question is really very elaborate, and you have already put a very nice picture of Bangladesh's development journey. So I was listening to the speaker, the previous speaker, who really very nicely laid out the role of think tanks and how think tanks have evolved in the context of Nepal. Indeed, Bangladesh's journey in case of think tanks are also similar, because you see, this think tanks are not directly involved in operationalization of economic policies, and their role in economic development is not direct as such. And as has been mentioned by the the keynote speaker in the beginning, is that they have a very important role in terms of policy influencing, advocacy. So there are various types of think tanks. I mean, in fact, globally also within Asia, South Asia, the think tanks are growing really fast. But there are also various types of think tanks. There are varieties of think tanks. But the whole objective of think tanks is, as has been mentioned, is that it is to, I very nicely put that it is a bridge between the power and people, basically. And that's why it is, it's also an indicator of a society, how open that society is to listen to the different voices and new ideas, and also to absorb and also to accommodate some of those. The stronger a society is, the more willingness to listen to the different voices. And think tanks are one of those vehicles through which the people can express their voices, because in many countries, in most countries, in fact, majority of the people do not have access to the policymakers, but policies are made for them. So from that point of view, there is an urgent need for having think tanks in any society. And you must be, knowing that there is here is the difference between a typical research organization and think tanks. A typical research organization will definitely do, analyze, collect data and analyze those data in a very professional way. They will publish it and present it in a seminar, and that's it. I mean, it's basically an intellectual exercise. And of course, from the readers and the students and many broader stakeholders, the benefit, but it is the periphery or the limit is that, you are confined within an intellectual exercise. But the think tank's role is to take it forward from where the knowledge has started, has been disseminated, but take it forward to disseminate among broader stakeholders, and more importantly, to the policymakers, so that they have they have some awareness on what the findings are from the ground level, and also what the people from the grassroots levels, what they talk about. So from that point of view, in the Asian countries, the emergence of think tanks, which you have just seen, that it dates back many years back. But then the real activities has started little later. In the context of Bangladesh, and I would like to also refer at various points in time, refer to our own center, the Center for Policy Dialogue. So how did it evolve? It is not just a think tank that standalone that came up suddenly. It has a history, it has a background, it has a political, in fact, context also. In the 90s, as you know, you have nicely, the moderator has nicely presented the achievements of Bangladesh, but it has not been always so smooth, both economically and politically. So we had gone through a long period of time under the military regime, when people could not express free thinking and expression of free thoughts that were not so easy at that time. And in the early 90s, there was when there was this environment had started after a long rule of military government, then there was this space of free speech or freedom of expression. So that's why, and then at that time we had a political democratic transition from the military government to a nationally elected government had taken over power at that time. And that was a time when people had really could breathe a little bit, after a long period of time. So that at that point in time, the founder of Center for Policy Dialogue, Professor Rema Subhan, thought of this thing. He had a long legacy. In fact, he was involved in the in the whole Bangladesh's independence, and he wrote this, the two-nation theory and all these. And then later on, he was also the member of the planning commission, Bangladesh after independence, for the first planning commission, and he was the director general of another think tank. So after his retirement, he thought of this, this is the early 90s was an opportunity to create a think tank where people would come and sit around the table and discuss and debate on issues, and then it will be, taken up by the policymakers. And then this would be a broader stakeholders, including the policymakers, including the members of the opposition party, business community, non-government organization, media, grassroots organizations. So, so that we have a vibrant way of, coming up with an issue which is useful and which reflects the whole ethos of Bangladesh's independence, which is to have a just and equitable society. And CPD's mission and vision has been that. And how, as I've mentioned in the beginning, that indirectly, I'll just finish in 2 minutes.
Sorry,
I'll wrap up. So our way of working or achieving this, that which has been mentioned, that we work on 4 legs, and our contribution towards Bangladesh's economic development is through these ways. One is, of course, the knowledge generation through research and analysis, creation and management of data and information base. Then the second way is the policy appreciation through dialogues, through networking, press briefings, media briefings, information dissemination, and also mobilization of the support from the broader civil society. Then policy influencing, the most important role. But we also realize that for policy influencing, you will have to have evidences and analytically rigorous research. So once we do that, we can have an effective policy influencing, which is another objective of CPD, and policy influencing at the national, regional, and also at the international levels by involving policymakers, as I've mentioned, in the dialogue processes and contributing by contributing to the preparation of global policy documents also, and national policy briefs. And then we also realize that unless we have human resource which have the capability to do that, human resource not only within the center but also outside, national human resource, in fact. So that's why we have capacity building as our another objective, which we do by appreciation and knowledge sharing at workshops and other seminars and other conferences where we bring in many people. So these are the 4 ways of doing. I would just briefly give examples that, like the keynote speaker gave many examples. We also have a number of examples both at the national and the regional and also the global level, as I've mentioned. At the national levels, one of our important work is that independent review of Bangladesh's development, which is a flagship program of CPD. Through this program, we monitor and scrutinize the economy throughout the year. Every 3 months, we have a review of the state of the economy. And then before the national budget, we make recommendations for the budget. And then after the national budget is announced by the finance minister, just the next day, we organize a media briefing to give our views on that. And then we also organize dialogues with the participation of many stakeholders, as I have mentioned. This is one important work, but then there are many other work at critical juncture we have taken up. I mean, one important criteria or important task of think tanks in general is that the timeliness, the promptness of picking up issues and raising voices, that's very important. And we have been always trying to do that. One important aspect was that, as I have mentioned, that journey has not always been so smooth. Of course, we are so proud of the achievements, but then there are also some limitations. For example, in 2013, when we had this Rana Plaza disaster, when the garments workers, died. After that, CPD mobilized many organizations who work on, issues on ready-made garment sector. We set up a monitoring
request you to shorten
platform.
it. And
just I'll end with this example, monitoring platform where all these organizations joined us, and we monitored whether those workers who have died, whether their families have got compensation, those who have been injured, whether they have been reinstated, all these. So that was one successful one. The other one, the recent one is the Citizens Platform for SDGs, where we have members more than 150. These are grassroots level organizations, NGOs, community level organizations, through which we are working towards the implementation of SDGs. There are several of the other global instance is that WTO context, though WTO is not so active at these days, but then CPD had been quite active in terms of raising the issues of least developed countries in the context of WTO. So with this, I want to end basically because I'm running out of time. But what has been the strength of this? Of course, you have mentioned initially, the keynote speaker mentioned that situation is not always so smooth. There are hostility across in many countries, hostility towards think tanks. But then to survive, one important factor I've mentioned, that evidence and analytical rigor, then also the achievement of the credibility and also the communication and also working together in partnership. That gives the strength, and that's also your strength and authenticity, that if you have a broader stakeholder, then which means that you have a legitimacy.
Thank you, Dr. Famida.
Thank you very much. I'm very
thank you
sorry
so,
for
yeah. No, it's all
crossing
right.
my time.
No, it was very interesting. I didn't want to stop you, but I think I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions from the floor here. So I wanted to save some of your remarks. I think I will quickly now move to Dr. Viva Dhawan, Director General of the Energy and Resources Institute, TERI. And I mean, her bio note is on the handouts given to you. She's worked for TERI for almost 4 decades. So now we have CPD with 30 years as a think tank, TERI with 40 years, and I'm sure, but TDRI with 40 years, and TERI is a very, as well. Thailand, I was familiar with TDRI, TERI. And so the question I go straight to her is, I think TERI has been globally recognized voice on energy and climate, as far as I know, and as a leading think tank. I mean, I would just like to straight ask you a question about India is one of the 5th largest economy in terms of nominal GDP, 3rd largest in terms of purchasing power parity, according to the data I had access to. But I think India has a lot of other challenges. So balancing development and climate change, environmental conservation is a challenge. So I would just like to, as a leading think tank of India, I mean, working in energy and climate, as well as in other sectors, what has your experience, roles in supporting India's development, social welfare activities? Over to you, Dr. Viva. I request you to turn on your video when you speak so we can see you. Dr. Viva, can you hear me? You are mute. I think I need to. And Dr. Viva Dhawan, can you hear me, please? Is there some problem with the connection? Yeah, okay, thank you. I think now.
It's all right.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, Dr. Viva. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot to say, but if you could just do it in 5 to 7 minutes, and so that we have more time for questions to you, I think I'm sure there'll be questions to you. Yes, over to you, Dr. Viva. Thank you for
do you have something specific to ask me?
Yes.
Or experiences? Yeah. So if that is, if you can pose a question, otherwise I'll go what I have to say.
Yeah. No. I mean, you are open to give your thing, but I was just thinking that from my knowledge, TERI is a leading voice on energy and climate change. I mean, I think your executive director used to chair the IPCC panel. Right. And of course, India now is it's the 5th largest economy. I mean, with a strong economic development agenda to reduce poverty, income inequality, and other things. So how has TERI as a think tank contributed and influenced that?
Sure. Well, I'll just try to finish in 5 minutes. So TERI, it's a not-for-profit research organization. We are about 50-year-old organization set up by Tata Group of Companies. The whole objective was to look beyond the problems today, and that's how TERI started working on renewable energy way back in 1974. And thereafter, I should say, we were the ones who sensitized, like when India attained 50 years after independence, and everyone was talking about growth that has taken place in the country, we started talking about that this is not sustainable. And there are other ways, cleaner ways, green ways to go clean as much as possible. And thereafter, we are, or rather all through our journey, we are a very well-respected organization because we are not activists. We are basically looking at knowledge. We are looked upon as knowledge-based organization. So we do a lot of research ourselves. and we work with the government, we work with the corporate sector as well. And we basically look into the problems or the solutions that the country is looking forward to. Now, the theme on which you are discussing, what is the role of think tanks? And I personally feel they have a very important role to fulfill. Because see, in terms of government, they are great as implementers. They are great in policy making, in getting the policies implemented. But let's realize that to make those policies, there is quite a bit of work to be done. And that work has to be done by an organization or set of organizations which become subject expert. They also have to work with the policymakers because not everything can be implemented. And therefore, that becomes a very important role for any country to let the think tanks like TERI bloom, because they will provide you the knowledge-based policy solutions. And that is what we are doing over here. So while we work with the government, or rather, I should say, independent of the government in developing policies, but at the same time ensuring that those policies will be implementable. The other important thing is that you have to listen to the society. What are their needs? Their needs are many times very different from the popularism that the government requires. For example, you are talking about, if you talk from the government level, it is that what is the impact, the larger impact, and GDP becomes a very important buyer of the success. But then you cannot leave the millions who are below poverty line, you can't leave them. And that is where you should be sensitive to their demands as well. So what is it we can do to ensure? And I'll give you one example, like at the present time, we all are talking about the climate change and its negative impact on our societies. We are talking of the impact of climate change, which is at the global level. And when I say it is at the global level, I'm also talking about floods in Germany and New York and so on. But then what happens over there, the impact of those floods, perhaps they impact lives, or they don't even impact lives, maybe for a week or 10 days, because they have enough surplus income to rebuild what they have lost. But in your country and my country, they lose their life saving basically to meet what they have lost. Or maybe their entire generation thereafter struggles for it. So therefore, what we require in terms of mitigating climate change is different from what developed countries perhaps can offer to us. And there again, it is that you cannot just make plans, you need to act immediately. And again, that is the role think tanks can play in perhaps estimating what may happen, looking at solutions that exist around the world, and also do their own research and ensure it helps the societies the way it should. The other is that most of the time, what we do is we look at the corporate sector as someone which is there to make profits. They are not there for charity, we must realize that. And therefore, we should not dislike the word profits. We should honor that word and say that it should be win-win for them and for whom they are working, for whom they are manufacturing goods or whatever they are doing. And for corporate sectors also, they want, in a way, a confidence in telling a research organization or a think tank where the shoe pinches or what is it they require. And if they are going to meet their net zero goals and so on, so over there also they need to have a research-based think tank which helps them. And that's the important role TERI plays. So basically, if I want to say as an organization or what we are doing, we are working on ensuring that the country meets its sustainable development goals, the commitments in terms of going net zero. So therefore, we have to work, or we are working with the corporate sector, because they are going to be the ones who are going to implement. We don't want to leave anyone behind, and therefore it's as important for a kitchen in a rural India where we have to provide them cooking solutions which are much cleaner. We also have to ensure that the communities get paid for whatever they are doing, and therefore whether it is in terms of carbon credits, whether it is in terms of cleaner way, so you also provide them cleaner solutions in terms of whether it is agriculture, whether it is energy. You have to ensure that you make energy available at the rural India level, at the village level, at an affordable price. So those and of course, those are the smaller issues, but then you also have to play a role at the macro level. And I'll say, like, I'll just give you one example, and that is on the shipping. So you basically look into, because you are looking into that the ships that come to the country and that go from the country to bring freight, they are also as green as possible. You are expanding, your infrastructure is yet to be built. And there again, it is whether it is steel, whether it is cement, whether it is the building itself, how green it can be. So you reduce the energy load. You go, whatever energy you have to use, it should be as clean as possible. And you also have to ensure that in years to come also, it is something which will be able to sustain itself. And nothing goes wasted, and that's where circular economy plays a very important role. So whether it is designing of the solar photovoltaic, so therefore there is a lot of research input which is required. Some of the research is common for a number of industries. How do you make those groups and ensure that whatever you do reaches the last mile? So in short, this is about the role think tanks can play and the role which TERI is playing. Thank you so much for your attention.
Dr. Viva, and thank you for saying that in a very succinct way. Now we are TERI with 50 years of experience, so it's very nice to, have think tanks from the region with this experience. Now I will move to Nepal in alphabetical order. Dr. Abid, I come back to you after Dr. Deepak Kumar Kharga. Dr. Kharga is the Senior Research Fellow at the Policy Research Institute, think tank of the government of Nepal. And his bio note is attached, so I will not go into detail. I actually had a chance to informally talk to Dr. Kharga yesterday. So I was asking him what would be a good question to ask him. So he in fact gave two keywords, and which I understand he'll be talking about today. One was he talked about epistemology, and in fact I thought I knew about it. It was something to do with knowledge, its thing. But I went later and looked at the dictionary, and it's the theory of knowledge, especially with regard to its methods, validity, and scope, and the distinction between justified belief and opinion. So he stressed on the reliability of knowledge. If that is what I understood, I think Dr. Kharga would be able to explain. The other keyword key phrase terminology he raised was the policy research ecosystem, which would be important. So without much ado, as a government think tank representative, I would request Dr. Kharga to explain this and other things that he would like to talk about. Over to you, Dr. Kharga.
Is it active? Okay. Dear moderator, distinguished panelists, and ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'll focus on basically co-creation of knowledge and policy advocacy also slightly. As a governmental think tank, we don't have to do advocacy. Actually, we must not do advocacy. We just must create reliable knowledge from rigorous research. That's all we have to do. And other think tanks also should pay attention to this stream of thinking or doing works. So basically, as moderator said, epistemology, and I'll talk about the policy research ecosystem in Nepal. Next, please. Okay, this is just to give that economic development is not a just economic growth, it's multidimensional. So we are all familiar with this, so I'll not elaborate. Next, please. Okay, this is a correlation between, actually it's an interesting paper done by Dipendra Kesi and his supervisor from Thailand, NIDA. So the left, the y-axis is actually annual registration. The figure is not high resolution, but and these peaks are somehow relates to time where major political events happened. If you look at this 1990 to 95, that was the period when economic liberalization happened in Nepal. And you can see the steep increase in the number of registration of NGOs. I also, from Dr. Khatun, the same was the story in Bangladesh, that period. But this is just a correlation. It doesn't tell one is cause and other is effect. It could be that political events are cause and the effect is the increase in the number of NGOs. Next. Okay, now, how to measure the impact actually of NGOs? This global Go-To Think Tank Index has suggestions for think tank impact assessment tools. Basically, there are indicators to measure the impact. Traditionally or generally, output is counted. How many reports, events like this, the outputs. However, it is suggested that not only in outputs, but on all other components, resource is kind of input, utilization, use of institutions, NGO actually, then output, what you produce, and impact, the changes you bring. And in the indicators, there are some, they are measurable actually. You can create a kind of metrics. So think tanks can discuss to generate a national metrics, or a kind of workable metrics for measuring their impact objectively, not by just by claiming, but with these indicators. Next, please. Okay, this is 2020 Global Go-To Think Tank Index reports. It has listed 19 think tanks from Nepal. In the left is this top South and Southeast Asian think tanks, 110. So there are 8 think tanks from Nepal listed. And on the right side, different areas, economic policy, think tanks related to economic policy, transparency and governance, and so on. A lot of reputed think tanks from Nepal are not listed here. So I'm not very comfortable with actually this list. There must be something in their metrics, although the previous one I showed is just their suggestion. And this is based on survey based. So surveyor, the respondent might not use those indicators anyway. Just to give a glimpse of the think tanks of Nepal. Next, please. Okay, now I go to ecosystem. policy research ecosystem. There are three major, I would say, players: academia, government, and NGOs. In case of Nepal, just to give some ideas about the situation, we have 17 university and deemed universities, and 10,000 teachers. In the government, we have about 20,000 officers, including this. This is rather old data, 2017. So we have 59 secretaries, 558 joint secretaries, and so on. In NGOs, as Dr. Pahari said, we have a little bit weird situation here. The think tanks have to be registered as NGOs. There is no special stream for research think tanks. Anyway, so we have 54,000 NGOs registered with Social Welfare Commission. And I tried to find out how many are there think tanks or research institutions. So I just look at the names. So there are 95 institutions with the name research in their name, and the 5 institutions with policy in their name, and 34 institutions with organizations with NITI in their name. So altogether 134. Probably these are research organizations. Next, please. Okay, in academia, how Nepali academia is doing. Basically, on the left is this scientific publication from Nepal in Scopus. So it's index journal, peer-reviewed journal, citable. You can see there is a steep rise in recent years. So in 2021, 3,000 research articles are published. And on the right side, different subject areas. The one with red letters, I thought they are more relevant for public policies, although for every sector, the other scientific findings or research are also relevant. Next, please. Now, the government. Here, the workforce government. In this right table, service group, and in government, federal, provincial, and local. And this service group is professional categories, administration service, health service, engineering service, and so on. There is one stream, fiscal planning and statistics, very small workforce, just 0.4%. And under this group, the subgroup is fiscal planning service, statistics service, general bioagriculture and division. So policy research service is missing. And so I'm suggesting, my suggestion is government should include policy research service. This human resource has strong background in research and then sectoral knowledge. Next, please. Now, gray literature. I will not elaborate. Basically, gray literature is what everything except this hardcore or the scientific literature, all the reports, not peer-reviewed articles, and so on. My point here is the need is accessible database. There is not many databases that deposits the gray literature. On the right-hand side, there are some databases. I also included the chatbots, the ChatGTP and so on. These are AI-powered search engine. And another is standard for quality. Also, gray literature also need to have some kind of standard for quality to assess their quality. My suggestion. And for database, I think nowadays there is digital assets management system, e-library type of. So every NGOs can maintain their own e-library. We are also doing, we call it DAM system. Our all digital materials are stored there systematically. Probably we can do that, my suggestion. And next, please. Now I'm coming to the end. Now, this is policy research evidence pyramid. Not all research reports are the same. Basically, the concept of this evidence pyramids comes from health research, clinical research, and so on. But we can also adapt this concept to policy research. Basically, in this pyramid, in the hierarchy, the bottom, the hierarchy is practitioners' experience and expert opinion. In Nepal, most of the studies, policy studies, research is done using this method. So, but the strength of evidence is level 1. As we go up, the level is increases, and we must strive for going up. I have written in the right side for level 2 and 3, need for academic oriented think tank. I think PRI is in the position of that. So basically, it should strive to generate knowledge based on more rigorous method with stronger evidence. Last slide, next, please. So my conclusion is today, its position of advocacy is not enough. What is behind advocacy, the knowledge, how knowledge is generated is important. So epistemology, strong epistemology and strong ecosystem is required. So these two makes impactful advocacy. That's my conclusion and message. Thank you very much.
Dr. Kharga, thank you. I think this was very clear. Now I'll move to Dr. Abid Goem Suleri. He's the Executive Director of Sustainable Development Policy Institute. And Dr. Abid, yes, you are here. I think I would like to the question to you is I think we countries in the region, South Asia, we have similar issues, similar challenges. But in the context of economic development of Pakistan, I think you are the 5th largest population in the world. You are strategically located in South Asia, but with close proximity to Central Asia and the Middle East. You are highly vulnerable to climate change and the flood, recent flood, and the droughts, recurrent droughts are these are major concerns for you. So what has been your experience and role as a leading think tank to navigate the challenges of providing evidence-based policy recommendations for Pakistan's economic development? If you could take 7 minutes, that would be very much appreciated. Over to you, Dr. Abid.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, my heartfelt greetings to NDRI for completion of their 20 years services and contributions to society. It's a landmark, and I wish you many more such anniversaries. Second, it's extremely heartening to see Krishna Pahari ji after almost a decade. Krishna, he served with World Food Program in Pakistan, and of course is highly recognized as food security specialist and food security expert in the region. Thank you, Krishna ji. STPI, we completed 30 years of our existence last year, and I think in this whole discussion, STPI, we are able to navigate in Pakistan. The way I define STPI, we call ourselves shadow cabinet. We work very closely with government, but we don't work for any government. And I think that gives us enough intellectual freedom and flexibility to remain part of solution and to point out where the public sector policies or the government policies, they are not on a right direction, and to try to bring them back to track. Now, I feel in order to reach to this echelon where all our peer think tanks who have presented their work before me, including NDRI, is the excellence in research. So it's about the objectivity of the message, it's about the evidence-based research, and then it's labeling and branding your message in a way which is palatable to policymakers. And of course, then keeping enough subtle distinction to not to get co-opted in this whole discourse. And I think this is where SGPI has been playing its role very successfully amidst this triple C crisis in Pakistan, where we are directly affected with the climate change, the super floods of last year. We are affected with the conflict, especially the supply chain disruption after Ukraine conflict and conflict which is ongoing in Afghanistan. And we are directly impacted by politicization of issues internally. So both internal and external problems, those are there, and navigating the policy solution within those problems, I think that require a lot of research, that require a lot of evidence gathering, evidence collecting, and synthesis, and that also provides you one enough leverage to be not only a knowledge broker but also a peace broker at times. So in Pakistan, by virtue of our institutional memory and by virtue of us working with the three last consecutive government, as you might have seen in my CV, I was part of economic advisory councils of three previous prime ministers. I think that helps in depoliticizing the debate and the discussion on economy, where by every opposition party tends to politicize the issues of economy, being part of this solution provision forums, that enables one to remind the political parties that they have been doing the same, and they have been following the same policies when they were in government. And I think that is also an important role. Finally, I would say that now we need to think of how to actually remain more succinct and more precise in providing our messages. Gone are the days when the policymakers, they had the appetite for a 50, 60 or 100 pages document, and I'm not undermining the academic vigor and the importance of our academic reports, but also now we need to understand that the world is now being run at 240 characters of Twitter. So the foreign policies and economic policies of countries, they are being managed on Twitter. And I think think tanks, in order to remain relevant, they have to rethink of their branding. They have to rethink of understanding how to convey their message in 240 characters without losing the accuracy of the message and without losing the correctness of the message. And this is something that SGPI has mastered very well. This is something that we need to learn all other peer think tanks. And finally, it's the multidisciplinarity that helps. I think now, because of interconnectedness of the problems which are self-reimposing, the think tanks, they need to provide the economic solution towards an environmental problem and environmental solution to economic problem, and then looking at their impact on food security and looking their impact on SDGs, and try to see that how they will impact the country's foreign policy, or foreign policy would be impacting those solutions. So now you need to be a one window shop, one-stop shop for policymakers, and that requires investment in human resources. Independent think tanks like STPI, who don't accept any grant or any endowment from the government, they are in a chicken egg situation where they need to attract good human resources in order to deliver, and then they need to, of course, keep on raising funds from non-governmental platforms to keep on paying them good salaries. And I know that many of our sister think tanks in the region, they are facing the same dilemma. But navigating through these troubled times, I think that is what imparts more credibility to a think tank. And I know NDRI has been making a difference in Nepal's socioeconomic landscape, and I wish it all the success for future as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abid. I think you raised some very interesting and important points, but I will, I think, wait for some questions from the thing. But before I go to the questions now, I would like to, Dr. Somkiat, the president of TDRI. Actually, Dr. Somkiat, you already gave a very nice and a detailed presentation. So I may just ask you if you have anything to add, listening to the remarks of other things. And there was one question in the previous session about when did Thailand stop taking foreign aid also. And also, I think you talked about seeking finance is a challenge. So like for us in NDRI, so that is one challenge, but I would also like to know, are the issues that the donors or the funders want you to research on, are they country relevant or it's more donor driven? Like, I don't know, I'm confused sometimes myself. So I think if you could shed some lights on that, that'd be very nice.
Thank you so much. That's a really interesting issue. First of all, on donors and foreign aid, Thailand has graduated from low-income country for a long time. So donors stop giving us money and assistance. They give to neighboring countries like Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia. And we have at one point in time decided that whether we should go and help them in the region as well, or we focus on the country Thailand. And we have made a decisive moment that TDI was found to be a think tank of Thailand. So we are not going to purchase, we're not going to chase international money. So we rely on working for the Thai government. And from time to time, we need to understand neighboring countries to understand the landscape for business and landscape for politics in the region. But that's not our main purpose. So we stopped receiving funds from international donors. But from time to time, there are some requests from this organization, UN-related organizations, the ADB, the World Bank, for us to do some commission research. But we mainly do research for the Thai government. And the issue repeats itself again. If you receive a lot of money from donors come with their own agenda. Sometimes that agenda fits our own agenda, and that works well. It is going to be a win-win relationship. But from time to time, we have different ideas. So we have to discuss beforehand with the donors. If we have choice, have to discuss with them what would be the best for our country, what is the best for Nepal, what would be the best idea for Thailand. So that's the way we balance our portfolio. If the Thai government agency come to us and would like us to do something that we are not believing in, we are going to say to them straightforwardly at day one that we don't know yet because the research has to be done into detail. But at this point in time, our hypothesis is something like this. and we see their reaction, whether they are going to buy our idea. If we have totally different idea, accepting to do the work would be very painful for both sides. So that's the practice that we have adopted. I would like to add a bit on, listening all these wonderful panelists talking about the roles of think tank. I think we have the same issues to address, which is, first of all, we have unstable politics in the region. Many countries like India somewhat have stable politics, but in Thailand and India, and in Nepal as well, you have change of the government very frequently. And also, we cannot guarantee, we cannot, assume that the government have capacity to implement the proposed policy. So proposing policy and get accepted is one thing. But if you really like to achieve impact, you need to make sure as well that the government that accept your policy can really implement it. So I think I have 3 points to share. First, on knowledge creation. Second is on collaboration. And the third one is public sector rejuvenation. First of all, on knowledge creation, the types of knowledge that think tank should create, from my point of view, is really different from the one that universities or other agencies are creating. Certainly, there are some mutual benefits in learning from each other. But the types of the knowledge that think tank should create, from my experience, is that it has to be really practical. You cannot say something from the textbook. And by being practical, it has to be detailed enough, including sequencing. There are many policies that are interacting. If you implement policy A first, it will be very difficult to implement policy B. So you have to sequence that very well. And this practical knowledge is often tacit knowledge, in a sense that it has not been codified into textbook or theory. So it's a kind of, half art and half science. We all look forward to have evidence-based policy. That's true from the positive perspective. But from the normative one, to recommend certain kinds of policy, it has to be practical. And sometimes practicality needs to understand context. And context is often kind of tacit. Second point on collaboration. I think in unstable politics, in weak government capacity context, and the problem is getting more and more complex every day, global climate change to begin with. So collaboration is a must. It's no longer an option. We need to work with knowledge creation partner, like co-creation that Deepak talked about. Have to work with the whole ecosystem, with the academia in universities, also with the governmental agencies. They understand the nitty-gritty detail of how to implement the policy. So we need to incorporate that as well. And in fast-growing economy of Thailand, as in the past, private sector has become pretty much powerful. So we have to work with private sector as well as the civil society group. So collaboration is also important. And last point is that I mentioned very often about the declining state capacity. So there is a need to rejuvenate the state capacity. For example, by proposing creating an environment that the government can make policy without fearing of failure. A sandbox, for example. A sandbox is a good idea. Government officials are afraid of doing something wrong, are afraid of being failed. So if we try to innovate some new idea, propose new idea to them, sometimes they agree with your idea, but they just cannot do it because of the constraint of rules and regulations and that sort of thing. So we have to also propose a space for them to work in a safe way so that they can implement the policy successfully. So that's the point I would like to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it was very well articulated, and your 3 points. Now, I think since time is short, I quickly go to the questions. I will take 3 questions together. Then I'll ask the panelists to respond to it. There is one written question I have received. I can read it out so that if others have the same question, they don't have to ask. I think inspired by Thailand's case, the question goes, does India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Nepal have a target year when to stop taking foreign aid? So this is one question. I will ask the panelists to respond later, but I will take 2 more questions. You can raise your hand or you can write it down in a piece of paper and pass it on to our volunteers. Anyone online also? Please put it on your chat box.
Moderator, before you wait for a question, can I just clarify the point that I just talked
Sure,
about?
please.
The case of Thailand, stop taking aid is not our own choice. Once a country has reached a certain level of income, the donors look elsewhere. They don't give us the money any longer. So that's not our own choice. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Getting money is nothing to be worried about if the objective is consistent with our objective.
Yes, I fully agree. Yeah, yes, please. Yeah, we have a question. Please give your name and the question. Please make it short.
Hello, namaste. Good afternoon. And this is Smriti Panda. I'm an alumni of NDRI. My career started from NDRI back in 2008. It's a pleasure to witness this day. Congratulations to the whole team of NDRI. It was a very enlightening afternoon today. Speakers from around the world were here to discuss about development challenges we have been facing and some of the potential roles of think tank. My query is, we talked about collaboration all the time, actually, and we know that that is very much necessary to solve or to propose potential solutions for global challenges that we are facing these days. Could you please share some of your stories in Thailand or around the world, some of the successful ways of creating effective collaboration for tackling global challenges? Especially where the think tanks are involved and where there is a cross collaboration for co-creation of potential solution. Thank you.
Very relevant question. We'll take one more question, please. Yes, please.
Thank you. The only very small question. I'm Yadav Khanal. I think the recommendation made by think tanks is not well listened by the executives, by the governments. I think that is what I feel about. There are a lot of excellent recommendations by the policymakers, but implementation has a serious problem. What is the experience of other countries? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Dr. Somkiat earlier mentioned if there is a 10% success rate, that's an achievement. So it shows the intake. Yes, please.
In Nepal, we are experiencing sort of NGO status for the NDRI. And in fact, in India, NGO means non-governmental organization, of course. And NDRI is also an NGO. But unfortunately, the NGOs in Nepal have been somehow notorious. And so we don't know how NDRI should be distinguished from other notorious NGOs. And the government institutions are always trying to pull us into the same box. Do the institutions, so which in Bangladesh, India, Thailand, or Pakistan, which you are heading, are you also experiencing the same kind of, I don't know, stepmother's relationship with the government, or you are experiencing different? That is my question.
Thank you very much.
The one who asked the question, when did Thailand stop taking foreign aid? Little more than 30 years back, when I was in Thailand for the first time with my Thai friends, I was very impressed by their saying that we are having a target of taking foreign aid, and eventually did it. And I'm glad that Dr. Sampad has also said that now we are free to choose our own projects and tell the people who want to aid us either take or go. That is a wonderful status of a development of a country. So when I'm a retired scientist and when I was doing my duty, once I happened to come across the foreign aid people wanting to work with us and with the government of Nepal. And I had to say that this is not a project we want. Go to Timbuktu if you want to go for this kind of work. And that is how Nepal should say in course of time. And I repeat, has Nepal has a policy of stopping foreign aid and do our development work as per the necessity of the country instead of the interest of the aid-giving country. Thank you.
Very relevant. Now I will ask the panelists. I will go maybe from the virtual panelists first, and I'll start from the reverse alphabetical order from Pakistan. Dr. Abid, I hope you heard the questions. Do you have any comments on these questions, please?
Thank you. I think starting from the question that think tanks, they are boxed in a broader category of NGOs and sort of love-hate relationship. That all depends on the type of funding that one receives. And I know that especially in the context of Pakistan, many of the NGOs, those got branded as quote unquote pursuing some external agenda with the external funding. So my suggestion would be that while we pursue any particular cause, we need to see that whether it should be done through some external funding or through some domestic resources. For example, in the context of Pakistan, I would be the last person to accept funding on women rights. Women rights is my own problem, and why should I advocate on women right with some external money when I can do it myself? Similarly, there are many other politically sensitive topics in each country where if there is an indigenous voice criticizing them, it would be taken perhaps as a more positive or lightly. But the moment you link it with some external funding, that would become a major scandal or a major issue. So we need to distinguish which funding is kosher for which theme. And second, in case of Pakistan, at least for STPI, we don't have the problem of access. We are in a situation where we are in touch with the highest level at policy making on WhatsApp. Our recommendations is highly sought after. Our problem is the accuracy of message and remaining relevant and providing the right kind of quote unquote the right kind of solution. Because after you achieve that sort of access, then any wrong advice from your side, any unresearched advice from your side, that will tarnish your image. So our problem is not access. Our problem is that we have to compete with ourselves in order to produce more quality research. And many of you in the region, you will face the same problem if you have the kind of access that STPI has in the policy making circles.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abid. Now, may I ask Dr. Viva to respond to your to the questions. Dr. Viva Dhawan from Terry. Were you able to hear the questions? Dr. Viva? Okay, I think there's some connection issue. So while we wait for Dr. Viva to be on, to get back to online, may I ask Dr. Famida? Okay, Dr. Viva, you are there. Sorry, Dr. I request Dr. Viva first, please. Yeah, thank you.
Well, if you can repeat the question, I was away for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, actually, like one question was, we talked about collaboration. What would be examples of collaborations, effective collaborations to tackle global, because India, Terry, with a lot of this experience. I could, if I
Sure.
could just.
Sure. Well, really speaking, I'm a firm believer that nothing could work without partnerships. And we have to learn from each other's experience. And if we look at the developing part of the world, it is that our conditions are quite similar, and therefore we can learn from each other. In terms of collaborations, where it fails or where it succeeds, it is that when you have joint projects, there is ownership from all the institutions and there is money available. So funders, they also favor that. The problem becomes that if there is no money, I'll put it this way, none of the institute has surplus funds to help another institute in another country. So therefore, if we can work out the funding well, and also funding basically to take the messages from one place to the other, because many of the success stories can be replicated, that is something which will be great. And also the other is co-development of technologies, again, which can work in partnership without any difficulty. So we are very keen, and we do work with many countries in different disciplines. So we'll be very happy to take it forward on case-by-case basis.
Thank you very much, Dr. Viva. That's very encouraging. And I think let this be an occasion of at least the 5 or 6 think tanks that we are here for future opportunities to collaborate. Now, when I want to now go to Dr. Famida, and just like Dr. Famida, this question about the registration, the legal status of think tanks. How is it in Bangladesh, for example? In Nepal, I mean, NDRI is registered as an NGO, and oversight agency, the Social Welfare Council, they treat us when we go with our project outputs and outcomes and thing, they ask us, I mean, they want direct social community level interventions, you know? But whereas ours is more research oriented, policy oriented, and there are some differences. How does that work in Bangladesh, Dr. Famida?
Thank you very much for this question. It's similar to what you just described. We have the regulatory authority for think tanks and non-government organizations is the non-government organizations authority or NGO Affairs Bureau, we call it. So non-government organizations affairs bureau, NGO Affairs Bureau, which is under the Prime Minister's office. So we have to take permission for each and every grant we receive, be it from within and outside the country. Of course, yeah, that is a real problem actually, because they want to see real impact, that how many people's lives you have changed and all direct impact, or how many jobs you have created. So, but then, however, for the last 30 years, we have been dealing with these regulatory bodies. So they understand that this is a different type of organization, and then this impact wouldn't be similar to the direct, like the do tanks or the NGOs who provide health services or education services, that type. So a little bit of difficulty and confusion, but then there is an understanding from the authority. I would like to also, touch upon a little bit on the questions which have been asked from the audience regarding stopping the foreign aid and all. And I think my Thai colleague has rightly pointed out that it is not your choice, actually. So once you cross a threshold level, then you are deprived, you just lose all these support mechanisms which are available internationally, and foreign aid is one of them. But having said that, Bangladesh has already, reduced its dependence on foreign aid for the last 50 years or so. Now, only less than 2% of GDP is dependent. It comes from the foreign aid, and that is also for some social, development-related work. So, and once Bangladesh graduates from least developed countries category in 2026, then such a grant will not be there, and we'll have to compete for commercial loans from international market at the existing rates. So that's what I just wanted to reiterate. And then the collaboration. Yes, collaboration is a strength, and the financial landscape for think tanks is really squeezing now, and also the modality has changed. Rather than earlier, our journey has proved that in the initial age period we used to prepare our own proposals, and then we'll go to the partners that we have this idea, would you support? Then they would be, they would come forward. But they have changed their modality. Now they will decide their agenda, and then they will publish a call for proposal. And for these proposals, like think tanks or consultancy firms, international consultancy firms, they will compete from all around the world. Even if they don't have any idea about Bangladesh or Nepal or whatever, they will come to the market, and they have some representatives, the minimum presence here, who don't have that much, with due respect, that much of visibility otherwise. So that's the real challenge now. So that's now within this limited financial space, working is difficult. Private sector, yes, it is a source, but then like government also, that when you rely on these sources, you have conflict of interest, because the think tank's role is scrutinizing policies, and sometimes that scrutinization is not liked. You also challenge the policies, if the policies are not, in line with the whole objective of a country's perspective. So that's why, getting money and using that for research and coming out with different recommendations, that's not liked by many governments in the world, in fact, not only in Bangladesh. Similarly, private sector also, many private sectors, there are of course some philanthropy, but in Bangladesh, unfortunately, the culture of philanthropy has not developed as yet. So the private sector would be interested to look to see their own recommendations reflected through think tanks, which is not desirable at all. So there is a large problem of the finance. Yeah. It is, but then there are ways also. There are some foundations and philanthropies globally. It also depends on whether your ideas are good and it has some solid, relevance for the country and also the world. So
thank you, Famida.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Actually, we are we finished our allocated time, but we have. I would request Dr. Kharga and Dr. Somkiat to respond to these questions. But just one. But I want to. There was one more question on the chat box, and it's basically regarding the think tanks have been there for long, but economic development hasn't happened. So why is that? Do the government really listen to think tanks' policies? And I think this was already answered. So, and what is the role of think tanks with SAARC? Are they working collaboratively? I think we answered that to some extent. So I think a minute each to Dr. Kharga and Dr. Somkiat so that we can go for lunch. Yeah, Dr. Kharga.
I would like to answer question raised by Professor Madhav Pokharel quickly, briefly. Basically, how the government looks at NGOs, is there mistrust? the question is platform. From the organizational platform, maybe there is frictions or some mistrust. However, in terms of human resource, government is using all the human resource our NGOs have. For example, our red book of this year has a research, policy research, basically this consultant service, by purchasing consultant service, they worth 600 crore rupees. Our budget is 6 crore. They have 6 urban. So other day, I told Prime Minister, these 6 urban rupees, nobody is checking their quality. So maybe PRI is the right institution to do quality assurance. So anyway, so every year, 100 times more than what we do has been carrying out. And these are done by consultants, and consultants come from NGOs. So there is no mistrust. Actually, government is using. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Your final words, please.
Yes, I would like to talk a little bit about collaboration. The question is really interesting. I would like to talk why collaborate, what to be aware of, and how to collaborate. Why do we need to have collaboration? Really simple. The problem is getting more complex, and no one has the skills, the knowledge to solve these complex problems. So consensus needs to be made so that we can unite all the resources and major forces in the society to tackle the problem. Consensus would be really important. People understand the suffering, the problems that we are faced now. For example, education quality is bad, but that's totally easily agreed by showing the numbers. But how to proceed is much more difficult. There are many ways to start addressing the problem. Shall we start with curriculum reform? Shall we start with teacher training or test and evaluation? Or should we use a voucher, privatization? There are so many ideas. Unless we can find a bit of consensus, the reform will not be moving forward. So that's why collaboration is a must. What to be aware of when we try to collaborate? First of all, trust is very important. If we would like to collaborate with other agencies, must make sure that there is no hidden agenda. If there is such thing, trust cannot be obtained, and consensus cannot be built. And we also need to understand each party's strengths and weaknesses. For example, you cannot expect a government official to criticize the government. So that role have to be played by someone else in the ecosystem. And credit have to be shared appropriately. If one entity or one organization try to appropriate all the credit, if it is successful, then trust cannot be maintained. And lastly, how to create collaboration. From my experience, we have begun with regular meeting with stakeholders, people with like-minded, people who like to reform. For example, on our project to reform the Thai education system, we have met monthly for 3 years to discuss the idea until we get some crystallized consensus. It's not a total consensus, but it's more or less workable. And by that, we have formed a coalition called the Thailand Education Partnership with many agencies. I think 20 or 30 of them have joined this alliance. And once you have that kind of platform, you can do many things. For example, you can invite political party leaders to discuss the problem of education reform, to educate them and to learn from them. And it's quite interesting that political leaders, once they are, when they are not in the government, they are very receptive to listen. So talk to them when they are opposition and educate them. And once they become the government, you can continue to discuss with them and push the reform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Somkiat. I think, let me just take a minute, I think, because my knowledge was really, I really enjoyed. I really learned a lot. And I was just counting, we have 180 years of think tank experience that was shared here, you know, with among all the 5, 6 think tanks. So that's thing. And I just, if I want to take one message each from each speaker, like I'll start with Dr. Famida Khatoon from CPD with 30 years think tank. I mean, she mentioned that the difference between a think tank and a research organization is a think tank has to take that research, you have to take it forward. No, it doesn't research. I mean, it has to be practical and other things. So I thought that was, it came in all the, it came in all their thing, but I wanted to just mention that. 50 years of theory experience from Dr. Viva was, I mean, she focused on climate change mitigation, and she mentioned we have to look at solutions. No, she talked about shipping. Now we have to, how to make it clean. I mean, that's practical. That's, we have to give solutions. No, we cannot just raise issues, solutions, doable, reliable solutions. Dr. Kharga, I mean, I'm really impressed. The credibility of knowledge, the ecosystem can have, once you have that, then you have an impactful thing. Dr. Abid from STPI, he said he's the shadow cabinet. Think tanks, I mean, we are not here to oppose the government. We are here to support the government. So we have to, I mean, provide the intellectual freedom, independent policy recommendations to the government, work with the government, because we are working for a common goal. I thought that was a very important point. And of course, Dr. Somkiat in his keynote and his thing, he talked about 3 indicators he looks at: knowledge creation. It has to be practical, contextual, detailed, and you have to sequencing. I mean, you have to do that. Collaboration, he talked about collaboration. We are all in an unstable political environment. So collaboration, co-creation is the only solution. And he also talked about, I mean, rejuvenating the state capacity, because it is the government, it's the decision makers who make decisions for our good and social welfare. So with this very short summary, I would like to thank all 5 panelists, Dr. Famida, Dr. Biva, Dr. Abid, who joined online, and for all your patience in listening to us in a physical sense. It's more easy to interact. And of course, Dr. Somkiat, I think, for his super extraordinary keynote speech. Dr. Kharga, I think you really put the context of Nepal in the picture. And of course, last but not the least, Dr. Pahari, my friend, who really set the context for this discussion. And I would just like to, as a NDRI member, I will talk to my colleagues. I think we could really have a solid proceeding out of this panel discussion, and which we will share with all that. And I think that will be the do's and don'ts of a think tank, sharing all the experience from all these, think tanks of 180 years of think tank experience. Thank you. Namaste. Let's go for lunch. Lunch, I hand over to Divyaji.
Can I hold you for just some time, please? Sorry, and thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bosnet, and thank you all for your active participation. We have now come towards the end of this excellent event. I hope you all had a very fruitful time with all the presentations, remarks, and discussions. We have just one more scheduled event, a scheduled agenda before we conclude this event. I would like to invite Dr. Rabita Shrestha Mulmi, Senior Research Specialist at NDRI, for her vote of thanks.
Thank you, Divya. Namaste and very good afternoon to all the distinguished guest speakers, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of NDRI, I'd like to extend my heartfelt gratitude for your participation and contribution to our 2-decade anniversary program. Thank you for your active participation. Your presence and insightful contributions have made this program successfully. To our esteemed Chief Guest, Honorable Dr. Bimala Rai Paudel, former Minister of Foreign Affairs and Member of National Assembly, Federal Parliament of Nepal. Thank you for gracing us with your presence and sharing your thoughts on the role of think tanks in development of nation. We are grateful for your wisdom and valuable insights. To our keynote speaker, Dr. Somkia Tankit Vanich, your expertise and insights have enlightened and inspired us. We are thankful for your valuable contribution and the knowledge you have imparted. To our national and international panelists, Dr. Famida Khatun, Dr. Biva Dhawan, Dr. Deepak Kumar Kharka, Dr. Abid Kayum Suleri, and Dr. Somkia Tankit Vanich, thank you for joining us virtually and in person for a lively discussion on important topic. Your contributions have been invaluable, and we appreciate the time and effort you have taken to be with us. A special thanks to Dr. Krishna Pahari for presenting the NDRI background paper, and the moderator, Dr. Dibas Bahadur Basnat, for facilitating the panel discussion for professionally and wonderfully. Also, I'd like to thank our respected former Minister of Environment, Science and Technology, Mr. Ganesh Saha, former Minister, Mr. Lakshman Gimire, and former Ambassador for your gracious presence. I'd like to thank our distinguished participants, notably Dr. Ganesh Man Gurung, Vice Chancellor, Gandaki University, and former Vice Chancellors, representatives from Embassy of the State of Qatar, representative from India, representative from Royal Thai Embassy, Administration, Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Department, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Education, Science and Technology, representatives from think tanks, representatives from development partners, notably UNOPS, UNCDF, Mercy Corps, Save the Children, academicians, representatives from national and international organizations, representatives from different media agencies for their active engagement and thoughtful questions. Your presence and contribution have added to this richness of the discussion. I'm pleased to inform you all that we have virtual participation from different countries, namely Australia, Bangladesh, Canada, India, Thailand, and USA. I would like to thank all the virtual participants for your active engagement and contribution to the success of this event. My sincere apology that I am unable to mention name of all the organizations here, but I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you present here and in virtual platform to celebrate NDRI's 20th anniversary together with us. Last but not least, I would also like to express my appreciation to all the NDRI members, researchers, staff, NDRI alumni, volunteers, technical support team, especially our IT team, and service providers for their tireless efforts in ensuring that everything goes smoothly. Once again, thank you for your participation and contribution to this event. I am sure we are going to meet in another forthcoming events. If not, we are surely meet at next annual day program. We look forward to your continued participation in future events. Thank you and have a wonderful day ahead. Namaste.
Thank you, Dr. Mulmi. With this event is now concluded. Please join us for lunch in the restaurant area of the hotel. Please collect the lunch coupons from NDRI representatives at the door. Thank you.